Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lewy is here. Welcome to another interesting video about alcohol metabolism. Basically, where does alcohol go after you've consumed it? How do you end up getting that dizziness, that stupor, that excitement, and later on the depression that you get after drinking alcohol? So welcome on this. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learned something new. Now, thank you so much for the support that you are according us all through our videos. If you are new here, this is a platform that shares interesting content about health. We break health health conditions in a language that you can actually easily understand. We also help you unlearn the myths that have been going around that you've learned all through in healthcare. And we share these videos every other time on this platform. So we consider you one of us, and we hope that you can actually find a reason to subscribe to our channel. Press that notification bell so that every time we have a brilliant health idea, you become among the first people to be notified. So welcome on board. For you who is returning here, you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for your support, and I hope you get to learn something new. So welcome. Now, this is a representation of our guts, and then our bloodstream and the liver. And then I want you to know that there are multiple organs that are involved in metabolism, basically absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion of alcohol. Number one, we have the gut, which is the absorbing surface. Number two, you have the pancreas, which suffers hugely when you're a chronic alcoholic. You've known of the condition called pancreatitis. Okay, we have the liver that does the metabolism. We have the kidneys that help you excrete alcohol, even the skin, because sometimes we excrete alcohol through sweat, but mostly we excrete it through urine and also through our breath. So also the lungs are involved in this. Therefore, alcohol affects most of the organs in your system. And that's why I always tell you, alcohol and cigarette smoking are two of the things that are actually involved in about 90 to 98% of the conditions that most of you are suffering from. Now, this is the gut. Basically, we have the lumen. The lumen is the inside part of the gut, both the stomach and the intestines, the inside part, that is the lumen. So this is the lumen. And the lumen of the gut is lined by a mucus. And this mucus is basically supposed to protect the lumen or the gut wall against the hydrochloric acid. Remember, in your stomach, you have a strong hydrochloric acid that is actually affected by alcohol. So if you're a chronic or you abuse alcohol all the time, most of the times you'll end up getting gastritis. And the reason is alcohol comes and destroys this mucous membrane that is supposed to protect your gut wall or the cells of the gut from this acid. Now, when you destroy that lining, you have exposed the gut wall to the content of the acid. That means you're going to suffer because now the acid will start burning and corroding the intestinal wall directly. And this mucus here is definitely intended to be there to protect the gut wall. Also, we have a layer of bicarbonates here. So these bicarbonates are released by the cells that line the intestinal wall. And these bicarbonates, what they do is to neutralize the stomach that is coming, stomach acid that is coming into direct contact with the stomach wall. So these are mechanisms that actually are intended to protect your gut against the acid. Okay. Now, so we have mucus to protect the stomach wall, and then on the lining of the stomach wall, or on the lining of the gut, basically the stomach, the small intestines, and the large intestines, we have bacteria, healthy bacteria. We also have both bad and good bacteria. So the population of the good bacteria is so high, and what it does is it subsides or it puts in check the population of the bad bacteria. Therefore, you will not suffer from a diarrhea or a constipation or stomach upset and abdominal pains as a result of infestation of the bad bacteria. So your good bacteria is actually part of your immune system. However, when you drink alcohol, alcohol comes in and destroys this bacteria. And that's why I always tell you to stay away from the mouthwash that you're using to actually clean up your mouth. That mouthwash has alcohol that comes in to destroy your gut bacteria and even the mouth bacteria and destabilize the population of this bacteria, and then exposes you to more problems. It will act temporarily in the beginning, but in the long run, you will end up having more problems. So therefore, stay away from that commercial mouthwash that you're actually using, okay? Because it messes up with this. So now we take alcohol. Alcohol comes into the gut wall. Number one, alcohol comes to mess the concentration of this stomach acid. Once it messes the concentration of the stomach acid, that means the microorganisms that inhabit the strongly concentrated environment in the stomach, the acidic environment in the stomach, will start to die because they have not adapted to living in neutralized pH or weak acidic pH. So what do? They start to die, and then you start developing other bacteria, the bad bacteria that actually can survive in that environment. They start coming up. And when they come up, you'll end up having either diarrhea or you end up having abdominal upsets. But look at it this way. On the surface of the bacteria, so we have a cell wall. So we have a bacteria cell here, and then we have a cell wall, and then a cell membrane. So this cell membrane has or is made up of things that are called lipopolysaccharides. Okay, so these lipopolysaccharides are very dangerous to the system. There's a video I did about lipopolysaccharides and how they cause or they can actually lead you to heart problems and strokes and also inflammatory conditions in the system. So when you destroy these gut microorganisms, the cell membrane releases the lipopolysaccharides, and these lipopolysaccharides will cross the membrane. They'll cross the membrane of the gut wall into the bloodstream. Now realize this, alcohol has three impacts on your system. Impact number one is it increases permeability, which means it destroys the integrity of this gut wall. Once it destroys this integrity of that gut wall, stomach content are now exposed to go through this and go into the bloodstream. They access the bloodstream. Some of the stomach contents will be exposed to the immune system because the gut wall is actually lined by a layer of immune cells or immune system. Also the blood vessels to absorb content that are coming from the stomach into the bloodstream. So you have two problems here. One, you have caused a leaky gut, which can expose you to gastritis and can expose you to ulcers. But you have caused this leaky gut that is exposing stomach content to the immune system. That tells you some of the proteins that you consume will become a problem to you because one, you are unable to digest them completely here because the stomach acid is messed up. Number two, you've taken in the protein, now they are not being digested. You are suffering from constipation or bloating. And then somebody will tell you, oh, you know what, when you eat meat, it stays in the stomach for 8 hours. That's a lie. You eat meat and you drink alcohol, that meat will of course stay here for longer because you've not digested it adequately. And you'll end up getting a constipation. So particles of that egg, that meat that you've eaten, because they have not been digested adequately, they will seep through these perforations or this leaky gut and they will encounter an immune system. Once they encounter an immune system, you will suffer because you will see the skin eruptions. You start now complaining you have protein allergies. Simply drop the alcohol and enjoy your meat. So this is to you people who drink alcohol and then you go ahead and eat meat and then you drink alcohol thinking that, you know what, this alcohol will land on the meat and it will not affect your gut wall. You're wasting time. Now you understand better. So alcohol causes a leaky gut, and now this the lipopolysaccharides that are coming from the bacterial cell wall, they are going to get access into the bloodstream. Now remember, these lipopolysaccharides are very dangerous because they are highly inflammatory. So when they get into the bloodstream, they will be carried all the way to the liver. Now this is the liver. Basically we have the liver and then the liver cells. So it gets into the liver because blood has to go to the liver for detoxification and cleansing. So this blood goes to the liver, and guess what? These lipopolysaccharides that you've just made in the stomach wall by destroying the gut microorganisms are going to encounter macrophage cells or cells that protect the liver. They are called the Kupffer cells. So when these microorganisms, these lipopolysaccharides come and encounter the macrophages that are supposed to engulf them and destroy them, they will trigger the production of cytokines. Cytokines are basically inflammatory mediators. We have interleukins 1 and interleukin 6, and all these are going to mediate inflammation. That tells you you start having inflammation in the liver. Because alcohol has now gotten into the liver, the Kupffer cells are now removing or producing the cytokines and interleukins that are supposed to mediate inflammation. Now that is inflammation. So you end up having a lot of inflammation in your liver. And that inflammation can actually be bigger enough to cause you things that are called fibrosis. Fibrosis basically means scarring, destruction and scarring, forming scars. So you'll end up having a scarred liver, you'll end up having the liver cirrhosis and conditions that are coming in with the liver, including a fatty liver. And remember, fats are very, very, very inflammatory. So this is coming from the gut, but the end result is happening in the liver. That's why alcohol is very toxic to your liver, okay? And in the liver, there is a system of enzymes that is called the CYP450, cytochrome P450. That's an enzyme system that its function is to just break down and metabolize everything that is coming into the liver, whether food, whether chemicals, toxins, and alcohol being part of those toxins and all that. So they come into the liver and they are metabolized. But before even that alcohol gets to the liver, we have already gotten an exposure to the lipopolysaccharides that are causing inflammation of the liver. That is one. Number two, alcohol causes a change in the pH of the stomach, which means you will now start developing microorganisms that are not supposed to inhabit the stomach. That brings you another problem. And the reason, number three now, is the lipopolysaccharides. So the impact of alcohol to the system, basically the gut, the bloodstream, and the liver, there are three. One, permeability of the gut wall, which causes you to get production of bad bacteria in the stomach, because again you've destroyed the stomach environment. That is number two. So you neutralize the stomach environment, you produce bad bacteria. These bad bacteria, they end up dying in the stomach and they release lipopolysaccharides, and because the alcohol is causing permeability, they get access to the bloodstream. Now they are ferried all the way to the liver, they encounter the Kupffer cells, inflammation starts, and now you have problems in the liver, inflammation in the liver. So increased permeability of the gut wall, we have bad microorganisms developing in the stomach, and now as they are being destroyed, they end up producing lipopolysaccharides that are going to cause inflammation in the liver. So this is what you should actually understand. Now 20% of alcohol is absorbed directly from the stomach. 80% of alcohol is absorbed in the small intestines. So which tells you that the stomach has the ability to absorb alcohol. Okay, so when it gets into the stomach, already you're starting to get drunk, and you realize in the early stages of your rave, of you going to the parties, drinking alcohol, you'll be so excited, you'll be cheersing with people and enjoying the alcohol. But as you continue taking more of the alcohol, you'll get into a depressive state. That's why you'll find somebody in a bar at 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. sorry, they are so depressed they don't want to go home, and at that moment in time they start airing their secrets, because alcohol makes you lose the control over your imagination, over your thoughts and all that, and it's very dangerous to the brain. And actually, as we'll be talking about the effects of alcohol even in the reproductive system, you realize that it actually can bring you a lot of problem in terms of fertility and shrinking of the penis, and also the testicles. So that is another one, and also shrinking of the brain for some people. So alcohol is dangerous to your health, and I want to tell you this for free. Most of you, when I tell you to drop alcohol, you tell me, how about wine? Now realize that wine, beer, spirits, scotch, whiskey, all of them are alcohol. The only difference is the distillation process and the percentage of alcohol. And we will talk about the percentages and how they are calculated. So as you take that wine thinking that is good for the stomach, you're actually going to get problems later on. It is just for now, for the short period of excitement, but the long run, you're going to get a fatty liver, and a fatty liver is going to bring you problems, because a fatty liver is the mother to insulin resistance. That is diabetes, hypertension, high triglycerides in the system, basically fats. You're going to get kidney failure, heart attack, and strokes. All those are coming as a result of a fatty liver. So avoid alcohol, okay? And remember this, you drink alcohol, you still consume the seed oils, you still consume the wheat, you're still a fruit addict, so you eat fruits and honey, which are going to give you fructose and the processed foods. So all that fructose is going to cause more of the fatty liver. So imagine somebody who drinks alcohol and still eats the unhealthy foods. That's a serious problem. But this is not me telling you that you drop the unhealthy foods and go ahead and drink alcohol, you will balance the equation. No, I'm telling you, take things that actually benefit the body. There is no alcohol benefit in the system, therefore avoid alcohol. Having understood the impacts of alcohol to your gut, to your bloodstream, and to your liver, which basically means one is permeability to the gut wall, two is production of the lipopolysaccharides that will actually cause number three, which is toxicity to the liver. It's time for me to take you to the metabolic pathways of alcohol, so that you get to understand how does this alcohol become metabolized and how does it leave the body. But I want you to see this. The group of alcohols is a larger one. So we have ethanol, the one that we are talking about, the alcohol that you people know. And then we have another one called methanol. Now, methanol is highly toxic to the system, because when you break down methanol, you'll end up getting formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is a substance that is actually used to preserve dead bodies, the corpse. So when you drink methanol or you get intoxicated with methanol, what you're doing is you're actually preserving your body while you're still alive. That is one. Number two, methanol is very dangerous, because that formaldehyde that it produces after metabolism is toxic to the eye. And there was a case scenario in Moranga in Kenya where people drank the illicit brew that had methanol, and then they lost sight, but they thought that somebody is turning off the light. So they kept on saying that even if you turn off the lights, we will still drink our alcohol. Literally, they know that they're actually losing sight because of methanol intoxication. Now remember, ethanol and methanol, they compete for the same receptors. And when they compete for the same receptors, ethanol has high affinity to the receptors than methanol. So this means if you've drunk methanol and you are being intoxicated by methanol, the solution is to give you ethanol. That's why you can actually give alcohol to somebody who has actually been intoxicated with methanol. So you give ethanol because ethanol will now compete with the receptors, with methanol on binding to the receptors. And ethanol will displace even methanol from the receptors, and that will help you recover from the intoxication of methanol. So it's easier to use ethanol to do away with toxicities of methanol. But this is a case that is supposed to be handled under very keen observation and watch in a hospital setup. Now, Ethanol, which is our story for the night, or story for the video, ethanol is metabolized by two enzymes. One, the enzyme system that is called the CYP450. Two is alcohol dehydrogenase. So here we have an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase. Okay, let's call it AD, or alcohol dehydrogenase. Let's put it ADH. Do not confuse ADH with antidiuretic hormone. No, because alcohol is actually a diuretic. So it causes urination, a lot of urination after drinking it. So this is this is a alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme. So it breaks down ethanol, and the pathway that goes for ADH is about 75%. So the larger percentage of alcohol is actually broken down by this enzyme. Okay, and also so ethanol is broken down by ADH, and this ADH causes a production of acetaldehyde. So when you break down ethanol, you're going to get acetaldehyde. Okay, now this acetaldehyde is the toxic substance. So if it builds up in the system, it's the one that causes you the hangover effects after drinking alcohol. Therefore, this has to be broken down so fast and taken out of the system to prevent toxification. This means that this one has to again go ahead and be broken down so that we actually get water and carbon dioxide. We exhale it out and also urinate it out. So acetaldehyde is now broken down by another enzyme that is called acetaldehyde dehydrogenase. Okay, or aldehyde dehydrogenase. So you break down this acetaldehyde to form acetate, and then acetate will be converted to acetyl-CoA. Now remember this, that acetyl-CoA, we've talked about this animal multiple times. Acetyl-CoA is the substance that the mitochondria realizes or identifies and then captures it and uses it to synthesize energy in the Krebs cycle. So alcohol can actually give you energy by taking acetyl-CoA into the Krebs cycle, and then you yield ATP. But I want you to see this. As you're metabolizing alcohol using this pathway, you're going to release something that is called NADH. In the first step of turning ethanol to acetaldehyde, you're producing NADH. Also, in the pathway of converting acetaldehyde into acetate, you're going to release NADH. Now you're building up this NADH. Remember, NADH can actually be channeled into the electron transport chain to produce more energy. However, this NADH, the accumulating amounts of NADH in the system, they end up blocking the Krebs cycle. So therefore, they end up blocking this cycle so that you don't ever produce energy. Now, this will mean the liver will have to produce more energy to actually capture the problems that are actually coming in here. So you'll stop the production of energy from the Krebs cycle. Therefore, there will be no fat metabolism. So therefore, fats will start building up. That's how you end up having a fatty liver disease, because the Krebs cycle is not active anymore, because these two are coming in to block the Krebs cycle. Therefore, there will be no ATP being produced. That is one. Number two, this can actually block again the glycolysis pathway. So you will not break down glucose to get energy, because the glycolysis pathway is actually coming through the same pathway. Number three, you will not be able to metabolize fats to release free fatty acids that will be used to form ketone bodies for your energy sources, or even to form ATP. That means you start accumulating fats in the system. And once you start accumulating fat, now you have a fatty liver disease. And that is what we call the alcoholic fatty liver disease. So alcohol is very dangerous in terms of a fatty liver disease that causes you more problems. So you already see now it's not necessary for you to take alcohol. And if you are a fan of taking beers, to men, beer is very dangerous because beer is actually estrogen. So beer has the phytoestrogens that raise your estrogen levels in the system, suppressing testosterone. Now you end up having man boobs, you end up having a pot belly, you end up having the buttocks just resembling the feminine nature, and you end up thinning your voice and all that. So therefore, if you drop alcohol, you start recovering from issues like erectile dysfunction and all that, okay, and emotions. So you need to take care of that. Now, pathway number two. So this pathway number one, the alcohol dehydrogenase pathway that gives you the ATP and all that. Pathway number two, which takes 25% of the alcohol, is the CYP enzyme system. Now, this is a dangerous pathway because you break alcohol and it will release the reactive oxygen species. These are inflammatory mediators. These are the ones that induce mutations in the mitochondria. These are the ones that actually cause systemic inflammation in the system. The same are actually produced by the unsaturated fats, the seed oils. So you see that. So imagine taking alcohol at the same time you're still consuming seed oils. You end up having a high ratio of reactive oxygen species. And now cancers are coming in. And now inflammatory conditions like gout, like arthritis are coming in. And now problems with the gut are actually coming in. All right. And now look at this. This is going to cause mutations, going to cause inflammation in the liver. Therefore, we end up having liver cirrhosis and liver fibrosis. That is a problem. Now you have to actually replace that liver, and that's a serious problem. That's expensive, and possibly we are yet to see a liver transplant being effective. So why would you go that route and then end up spending a lot of money that you've actually saved over a long period of time? You just spend all that money trying to fix the liver that can actually fix itself. Remember that if you lose a third of the liver or even 2/3 of the liver, it can regenerate to give you a new liver. So protect that liver so that it can actually protect you. So these are the two pathways of breakdown of alcohol in the system. Now understand this. Alcohol can cause you a lot of problems. And these are the problems that actually come in with alcohol. We have the coma. When you're highly intoxicated with alcohol, coma is coming in. You can actually die from it because of dehydration, because of low glucose levels, okay, and buildup of fat in the system and all that, clogging of the arteries and all that. So alcohol can bring you a coma and death, can bring you strokes and heart attacks. Alcohol causes dehydration, therefore kidney problems are coming in. Alcohol can suppress your respiratory centers. So when you take alcohol over a long period of time, you will end up suppressing the respiratory centers. Even high levels of alcohol, they will suppress your breathing centers, and now you have problems. Okay, and when you take alcohol in one night, because most of us want to take a whole 1 liter of that Jack Daniels bottle and just clear it in one night, that is a problem. It wasn't designed to be finished in one night. Okay, and then of course we start from mild symptoms of intoxication like nausea and vomiting, and then double vision, impaired judgment. We also have the hangovers after the metabolism of alcohol, and this is coming in because of accumulation of acetaldehyde. But these are the extreme ones when you are totally intoxicated with alcohol. So again, these are basically the symptoms of alcohol intoxication. Now look at it this way. We have methanol that we've actually said it is competing with receptors with ethanol, and ethanol outweighs it. Also, the two are competing for this enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase. And this ethanol has high affinity for this enzyme. That means it will be easier for you to do away with toxification of methanol through using ethanol, okay? Number two, there's a danger in people taking alcohol and still going ahead to take metronidazole. That is fragile in our markets. So if you go ahead and take that drug that is used for vaginitis for ladies, or vaginosis, that is used for gut problems like amoeba and all that, that flagyl or metronidazole is a medicine that is designed to heal those conditions. However, there's a reason why you are told do not take flagyl with alcohol, and that reason is this. You see this pathway that alcohol follows to get you all these problems, all these issues, to basically all this, the end result is ATP or water and CO2 to exhale them out. Look at this way. Flagyl, or there's a drug called also disulfiram, the one that actually was used to block people from being alcoholics. So it was used to actually help people get out of alcoholism. It's called disulfiram. But metronidazole comes and blocks this pathway here. So once it blocks this pathway, we are not going to convert our alcohol into water and CO2 or ATP, or even into acetate, which is the least toxic in the system. Therefore, we will start accumulating acetaldehyde in the system. Once you accumulate acetaldehyde in the system, what will happen to you? You might end up having a hangover for 3 days, the hot flashes, the rashes on the skin, the nausea and vomiting, the headaches. All these things are coming in as a result of the buildup of acetaldehyde in the system. So therefore, if you're taking alcohol, stay away from metronidazole. That's the reason why you're told in the hospitals, if you're now starting or initiating the therapy for metronidazole, please do not go ahead and take alcohol, because you will suffer the consequences and you will never take the bottle again. So again, this was tapped in, this mode of action was actually tapped in for disulfiram to actually help people overcome alcoholism, so that when you give somebody alcohol and then you give them disulfiram or metronidazole, that prolonged hangover will actually make them quit the alcohol. But that was not the right way of doing it, because this can actually bring you more problems in the system, because it's highly toxic to the cells. Okay, so that should be understood. Now, there is a concept that our famous Mutudo brought in Kenya, that was for the alcohol on traffic jams or on traffic roadblocks. Alcohol utilizes the same concept. Now remember, when you're breaking down alcohol, it's metabolized in the liver, and some of it will escape into the lungs and it's exhaled out. That's why when you're drinking alcohol, when you belch, there is that smell of alcohol. So it comes out through your lungs actually, and you breathe it out. Now, the percentage of alcohol in your breath and the percentage of alcohol in your bloodstream are the same. So therefore, if you inhale in that alcohol machine, what will happen is that alcohol will reach a certain level in the alcohol blow. There's a chemical reaction that is initiated, and there's a change in colors, and that color will actually show on the alcohol blow. That will show if you are totally intoxicated and you cannot drink, you cannot drive, and that will cause you problems with the traffic police. Okay, so this is how they actually tap into that, because the breath has the same concept, the same concentration of alcohol like the blood. So that is the alcohol blow. Now, alcohol, excessive consumption of alcohol or chronic consumption of alcohol, apart from it giving you gastritis, indigestion, and malnutrition, it suppresses appetite so badly. Now, when it causes gut problems, when it causes suppression of appetite, when it causes you indigestion, what will happen is you are unable to absorb vitamin B1. When you are unable to absorb vitamin B1, you end up having a condition called beriberi. Now, this vitamin B1 is necessary in brain development, in nerve function, and therefore, if you end up having low vitamin B1 or vitamin B1 deficiency, you're going to have nerve problems, the numbness, the tingling, sometimes very hot feet or cold feet. You're going to lose memory. Okay, that's why people who drink alcohol, they can't remember most of the things. You're going to get into psychosis, psychotic conditions and psychotic symptoms are going to come by. The liver problems. Also, you're going to get beriberi, which is a deficiency of vitamin B1. So therefore, please stay away from alcohol. It's not necessary. Okay? And whether it's beer, whether it's wine, or whether it's whatever alcohol you're taking, it still has alcohol content. The difference is the percentage or the amount of alcohol in that. On that note, allow me to discuss with you this alcohol concentration and the percentage of alcohol in our drinks. So I want you to see this. Most of your drinks are written on either 40% or 6.5% volume over volume. You'll see this on your bottle. So if you're a fan of whiskey or a fan of scotch or even your beer, go and read the label. You will see either 40% volume over volume or 6.5% volume over volume. I tend to understand that this is for beers because it's a low concentration and then high concentration of barley and all that. But this is for the spirits and wine, and no spirits and whiskeys and scotch. 40%. What does this mean on that label? This basically means if it's written on 40%, it means you have 40 mLs of alcohol, that alcohol, in 100 mLs of that alcohol, or 100 mLs of water. So if you have 40%, you have 40% of ethanol in 100 mLs of that fluid or that of the volume. So if most of the alcohol bottles are about 750 mLs, so 750 mLs or 1 liter. So if 40% is in 100 mLs, what about 750 mLs? This will give you the amount of alcohol that you've actually taken when you sip all that amount of, all that bottle of 750 mLs. You people call it mzinga. So this will be 750 mLs multiplied by 40 mLs and then over 100. So this is 75 times 4. That is 20. Then that is 30. So basically, I hope I'm right. I wasn't so good at mathematics. Anyway, so this basically means, let me just confirm. Yes. So this basically means in that whole mzinga of alcohol, in that 750 bottle of alcohol, you have actually drunk 300 mLs of alcohol. So 300 mLs is basically ethanol, and then the remaining amount is basically 450 mLs is water. This is going to cause you a lot of problems already. That's why you get so drunk after drinking that, and this will cause a problem in the following day. You'll have a lot of hangover effects. So imagine how much alcohol, almost the half of that bottle is just alcohol. You're not designed to take 300 mLs of alcohol in one single night. That is not going to happen. Now, for the lovers of beer or for the lovers of wine, 6.5% volume over volume. So I want you to calculate and show us in the comment section the answer to how much alcohol have you taken in 1 liter. So let's say this is 1 liter, which is 1000 mLs. So I want you to calculate and then tell us in the comment section if you've understood it. How much alcohol have you taken if the bottle is labeled on 6.5% volume over volume and the bottle is actually 1 liter of alcohol? How much alcohol have you taken in the system? We are waiting for that answer in the comment section. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this alcohol metabolism. We've done a live about alcohol. We'll put a link on this video that will send you to the live that we did about alcohol, and you'll have fun because that's what we do here. We have fun at the same time we learn. So yes, we welcome your thoughts on this. Kindly like the video, share it widely so that people get to learn more about this and they get to understand alcohol metabolism.